I'm recording. Be on your best behavior. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm going to go ahead and share the screen. This party started. And I will welcome you guys tonight to this, our second, really bad feedback, our second meeting of the, which is crazy. I don't have any. Give me just 1 second. Hopefully that stops. No, I don't have any long queue from so we'll open it up now to see if anyone has any happy birthday you'd like to share. I hear somebody jingling.
That's my dog. Sorry.
I thought you were very excited and you were jingling your happy dimes. So I will say my happy buck that we'll share is weird one. My family got COVID except for my son, which is probably the best thing that could have happened because he's back at school at University of Louisville. So we are all well and recovered. But the silver lining on that is that the boy child who lives in a dorm did not take it back to school and infect the entire world. So somebody's got to top that. There's got to be something better than that.
Oh, I can top that.
All right, Emilio.
The main drain sewage of my house broke. Cost $4,200 on 2 days to repair it.
That's pretty crappy.
Nice, John.
So if anybody can top that, I had to.
No, you were supposed to top it in a good way, Emilio. You were supposed to better me.
I had to go back to my in-laws' house because this is the house that I moved closer to my office, so I wouldn't have to be that close with my in-laws. We see customers all the time. So far, we're negative, and we have taken all our PPE. We have our shields and everything, but they are in the mid 70s and they don't heed the warning. So I said, well, we're gonna take our precautions.
That's all you can do, right?
Yeah, but then, that happens.
Yes, it does happen. Trust me. Ask me how it happened. Mr. Jackson, did you have something to share with the group?
Debbie got her first dose of the vaccine today.
Fantastic.
Hey.
Hey, I forgot. I bought a $10 Powerball ticket and I won $10.
All right.
I got 4.
I got $2.
Can I say a couple things, Amanda?
Yeah, go ahead, Jim.
I want to talk about, I'm setting up a ride in Maggie Valley, August 26th to the 30th. It's a memorial ride for Carlton Purnell and Terry Scoblin. And both of the widows are going to attend the event. So I'm hoping for a good show from the club. The other thing is I don't know if you know Clement Salvadori.
Yeah.
He's been writing articles in motorcycle magazines for years. I've been working with him for like a month, trying to get him acclimated to Zoom, and I'm going to set him up for the next couple of months to come and talk to the club, tell us about what he's done.
Awesome. Jim, can you please
What were
make sure?
those dates in August? Jim, what were those dates in August?
August 26th to the 30th. In Maggie Valley at the Jonathan Creek Inn.
At where?
Jonathan Creek Inn.
Can you send that out, please?
Yeah, it should be on the webpage, but I'll send out a mail too.
That would be great.
You sent an email before, didn't you, Jim?
Yeah.
I sent it out to the Southeast region.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I think. No, I had no.
All right. Anybody else have anything to share?
Me?
Miss,
Yeah, remember that young girl that spoke to us a few months ago? You know, she's still in high school, won all those awards.
Mhm.
She was named top in her class in the nation by AMA in the most recent magazine.
that's awesome.
Oh,
Saw an article about her, John. I think you posted it, right? There was an article over.
I think so. I think I did.
Yeah, exactly. So we started with our big summer project today. We got a big hole in the backyard for our new pool.
Just in time for the snow.
Can you dig that?
Aha.
No
Oh,
snow.
Jerry's got jokes. That's awesome. All right, all. Anybody else have anything to share?
Well, I don't know. I was looking for my writer magazine online because they'd stopped publishing it.
Really?
I ran across a little thing for the Cardo Pack Talk Bold. They were having a contest, and it was their mesh month, they called it, or month of mesh. So just for the heck of it, I answered the questions and hit enter and forgot about it. And a couple weeks ago, I got a new set of Cardo Pack Talk Bold headset.
Nice.
Nice.
You guys
You got a chance to use them yet?
No, not yet. It's Pack Talk Bold. It was a double set, so they're already matched up. So I can't complain.
That's awesome. All right, guys. Well, I would like to thank Chris Jones tonight for stepping in. Our speaker had to cancel. Chris has put together a presentation for us. He's going to talk about his 2014 trip to India for the polio vaccination efforts. So without further ado, I will turn it over to Mr. Jones.
thank you, Amanda. So do I have sharing capabilities here? Looks like I do. No, not that one. Stop share. All I gotta do is find the right window. There it is. Can you all see my screen now?
There we go. India 2014. Yep.
Excellent. Well, let me kick this thing off. So this presentation is about 7 years old, and I have not modified it since 7 years ago, but I've done it all over our zone and excited to present to you all tonight. John, you'll recognize many of the pictures and many of the people in the pictures since you have been on this trip. But since it was to be a foundation presentation, I want to emphasize the point that there will be a number of Rotary Foundation moments throughout this presentation. So we started our trip off in Delhi. So you see a map there of India. Delhi is up in the top center of the map of India. This is our team that came out on this particular one, and we did not actually attend a national immunization day. It was a supplemental immunization day. And the young lady in the center in front is 17 years old, and her parents granted her permission to come with this team on this trip, and made Colleen Bonadonna, who's on the left side in the front, and Nancy Barbie on the right side in the front, as guardians for her during this trip. She's an incredibly mature young lady, and it was phenomenal. The gentleman in the back right on the screen, John Lewandowski, has since passed away. But he was driving a lot of Rotary Foundation gifts of some projects that we had a chance to tour on this trip. So we kicked it off after a very long flight over to India, and we stopped by the World Health Organization right there in Delhi and had a chance to meet Dr. Bal, who told us a little bit about what the Rotary effort has been in terms of polio eradication in India, and the various partner supports that we had through the World Health Organization, UNICEF, and the government of India. One of our next stops was by the St. Stephen's Hospital, and this is a really important component of this trip because it is funded by the Rotary Foundation. And Dr. Matthew, who you're going to see in a picture here in a minute, is one of the beneficiaries of the funding that comes out of the Rotary Foundation, who does polio corrective surgery. And you'll see pictures here of folks that have had the polio corrective surgery completed, and some of the I didn't put some of the more gory pictures in where you can actually see bones breaking and blood pouring, etc. This young lady here actually had her foot totally twisted in the other direction and was unable to walk. And this was one of her first times walking since the polio corrective surgery. So it was a big moment for not only us as visitors, but for her as a person that's gone through the polio rehabilitation. So a couple of pictures that I'll just share with you of events that took place. And there with me is Dr. Nishal Pandey. And Dr. Nishal is an amazing doctor who does so much work throughout India, not only relative to polio, but in his own village, and does many things for absolutely no charge. He's an amazing Rotarian, amazing human being, and a lovely individual. And we formed a great friendship. So from Delhi, we flew off to Calcutta, and you can see that it's off on the right-hand side of the map there. And you'll notice in the center of the picture, the second gentleman on the left is one of our incoming Rotary International presidents, Shekhar Mehta. And we had the chance to meet Shekhar and talk to him about many of the projects that he is personally involved with there in India. And this one happened to be a surgical unit for children that were born with holes in their heart, which is very inexpensive by US standards. It cost about $1,000 to perform the surgery. There is a requirement that the parents of the child does put up a little bit of money, so they have some skin in the game, but the rest of it is all funded through donations that are given to the Rotary Foundation. So we had the chance to, visit with some folks, and I want you to notice we're in a surgical ward, but we're not wearing any masks. We're not wearing any caps, not wearing any gloves. So, their sense of sanitation is a little bit different than what we're used to here. And this is a very unusual picture in that it's a dad in the hospital with his child. Usually the dad is off somewhere else earning money. But in this particular instance, he happened to be there with the child. So it's one of those rare instances. But again, look at the hospital ward here with all these children that have either already had the surgery or being prepared for surgery, and the way that the surgical ward is established. There's another project that Shekhar is very involved with in India, and that is the Rotary Eye Clinics. And in 2014, they had 7 of them. Their goal was 21, and I'm not really sure where they are today, but it cost about $25,000 USD per year to operate one of those surgical units. These are the folks that have been brought in to have the surgeries. Now, what's interesting is the Rotary clubs in the morning go out to the villages, they collect the folks in buses, they bring them to the eye clinic, they perform the surgeries, which are $20 US to perform the surgery. Then they come down to the waiting room where they recuperate. And then at the end of the day, they're taken by bus back to their villages. And this is Shekhar talking to some of the patients that are there in the clinic. John Lewandowski, who was on the trip with us, the gentleman on the right there, was a big proponent of bio toilets. And the product was called Embiolet, or Embiolet, I'm not sure which way you pronounce it, but he had raised a lot of money through the Rotary Foundation to put these into many girls' schools throughout India. This is some of the technology involved, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but bottom line is, as byproduct goes into the toilet, it gets turned into gray water, and then the gray water is used to water crops, etc. So it makes it a total sustainable unit. This is a typical toilet throughout India that you see here, where the wood is breaking away and you stand over this hole in the center of the ground. You have a little bit of curtainage there to give you a little bit of privacy. This is what Rotary is doing to repurpose those toilets and put in new ones. So imagine, what we have here in the US compared to a standard or an upgraded, I should say, toilet there in India. This was a village that we went into that was right behind one of the busiest commerce streets. And it cost about $20 US and it lasts about 15 years. And you can see that they're actually building the sewer that one of those toilet blocks in the previous picture would stand on top of. And I'll tell you a little bit more about this village here in just a moment. Does anybody know what this is a picture of? Somebody shout
I
out if
do,
you
I do. I
Yeah,
do.
John, you don't count. Somebody else.
Okay.
Cow pies.
Yep, cow pies. It's exactly right. So in this village, and again, this is about 600 yards from a very, very busy commerce street in India. And you would never know that these two civilizations existed so close together. But the children and the mothers go out into the fields and they collect these cow patties and they form them and then they stack them up to dry. So what's interesting about this, interesting I think anyway, is this is a typical stove that's in this village. And they take those cow patties and they put it into that center hole right there in this stove. And imagine they're cooking in an open pot over top of the fuel, the cow patty, and all that fuel and the flames or the fumes from the fuel are potentially infesting the food that they're eating. So just something to think about in terms of the work that our Rotary Foundation does to make lives better for people. So while we were in Calcutta, we went off and visited a girls' school. And we'll tell you a little bit about this girls' school. By the way, this is a picture of next to me of my wife sitting next to me. So, and this is a picture of the girls' school who is getting a $50,000 Rotary Foundation grant for those MBILAs that we saw earlier. And they're going into about 30 schools. Now, the critical component of them going into the girls' schools is once the girls reach puberty, many girls drop out of school because of some of their biological functions that take place and they just stop coming. This was a current toilet at that particular school that we were visiting, and that school will be getting or did get a bunch of MBILETs to be used. So imagine having this as your standard toilet in a school. All throughout India, and this was always remarkable to me, India in 2011 had their last case of polio. Now here we are in 2014 visiting India, and there's lots of open sewers running throughout the city. If any country has the ability to eliminate polio, and India was able to do it, it can be eradicated anywhere on the face of the earth. When you think about all of this open sewage flowing through the cities, it is just absolutely incredible to me that India was able to go from one of the worst in the world in terms of polio infiltration to being fully eradicated. Just absolutely phenomenal. So from Calcutta, we went off to a town, and I want to emphasize the word town, called Dhanbad, and that town is a town of about 7 million inhabitants, so relatively small by India standards. One of the first places we visited was this school, and I want you to notice in the right-hand corner where it says the Rotary Club of Dhanbad, and that is that this Rotary Club totally funds this school, the operations of the school, and all the inhabitants there in the school. These are some of the kids that happen to be there, and you can see our team there with all the children. And here the children are actually performing for us. This group of children happen to be deaf, and they're all dancing in lockstep based on the music that's playing, but again, they are deaf. So pretty phenomenal. And if you happen to notice in the background, there is a Rotary Foundation 100% Paul Harris Fellow Club, which means that 100% of the members of the Rotary Club of Dhanbad had achieved Paul Harris Fellow status during the year of 2011 and 12. Think about this. This is India. They have the same standards that we do of $100 US to achieve, I'm sorry, $1,000 US to achieve Paul Harris status. And if a Rotary Club in India can do that, any club can do that. So apparently we were highly regarded by the press while we were there. I don't know what this says. It could say these stupid Americans are here visiting us, that we wish they'd go away. You just don't know. But there we are. Nancy Barbie is being filmed on TV and is being broadcast across that part of India. So a pretty phenomenal day. We're all having a great time. You'll notice that we have colors on our face, and that happened to be because we were in India during the holiday of Holi. And I'll have some more pictures of that here in a minute. When we got to the school, we had the opportunity to sign the wall banner. So my wife Colleen signed first. I signed after her. And there's our signatures. Not that you care, but just FYI. So here is the creme de resistance, the actual day of national immunization. And we had the opportunity to immunize these children. And these are just some sample pictures. But I have to tell you, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart, working with this group of people and actually communicating with the mothers who had no ability to communicate in English, but we could communicate through gazing in each other's eyes, it really made me tear up that they were saying thank you for us providing the 2 precious drops of polio that were about 60 cents US that saved these child's lives, that made a difference so that they would not be crippled from polio. Just a phenomenal, incredible event that we all had in experiencing of giving these precious 2 drops. And I want you to see, if you look at my camera and get away from the screen here for a second, if you can see in my camera, I'm actually holding up one of the polio vials that we had on this trip. And I have kept this on my desk to remind me the good that Rotary does. And Colleen had another one that she kept on her desk. This is her vial. That she kept on her desk at her office. And she always got into conversations with people that would walk in and say, well, what is that? And she got to tell about the great work that Rotary is doing in terms of this. So how do the vaccines get transported? Well, these are the cooler boxes that they come in, and keeping the vaccines very cool, very similar to the COVID vaccines, is critically important. In fact, when you hold this, and back to my camera here for a second, when you hold the vial, you cannot hold it at the glass part. You have to hold it from the plastic part, because if you hold it at the glass, the heat from your body will warm up the vaccine to where it actually ruins it and makes it no longer valid. So you'll see there's the little ice bricks that are inside the cooler box, and look at the 2 holes, you know, one hole here and one hole here. And when the vaccines come out of the cooler, they're actually stored in those little holes in the cooler block until you go to use them and administer them to the children that are going to receive. Also notice the tabular document here where the logging is taking place. There are no computers. There is no computerized database. This is how they log when a child receives the vaccine, so that they can go back and manually look to see when it happens. And this is a little bit of work of the woman actually creating the logging of the vaccine going into the child. Here we are celebrating once the vaccines have been given. You can see we're all happy and celebrating and holding our 2 fingers saying we're this close to eradicating polio off the face of the earth. As we were walking through the communities, that you could see that how they would mark the fronts of the houses, and houses is probably a very generous word of the shacks that these folks lived in. But you can see here that it was marked P150. And again, we were there in March, and this polio vaccine was given on January 21st of 2014. And another child there was vaccinated on February 14th. It says 25. I don't know that to be correct. So, and this is a typical shack of where folks live. And each one of these openings is an individual's or a family's home. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4 that are pictured in this picture. Imagine that. So from the National Immunization Day, we had a chance to go off to the Jerry PAL Limb Center, where folks that hadn't gotten through the polio corrective surgery have an opportunity to get a replacement limb so that they can actually walk. Jerry Powell is a Rotarian. He founded this through the Rotary Foundation. And these are samples of some of the limbs that were created for some of the beneficiaries to have. This particular place also has polio trachs available. And what's interesting about these trachs is that the recipients don't just get them for the sake of getting them. They actually have to demonstrate that they have earned them through community service. So they earn their right to having these trachs. They don't just get them for the sake of getting them. So as I mentioned earlier, we were there during the time of Holi in India, which is the festival of color. And the celebration there is that you walk around with this powdery mix in water, and you literally color everybody, as you can see being demonstrated in the pictures here. And Colleen and I went off to an actual event separate from the one I was just picturing, where the attendees actually had water guns, for lack of a better term, where they were squirting everybody with all the color. We were covered from head to toe, and it took us literally weeks to get it all off of us. And it got into places that I don't even want to share on this video. Okay, so from Kolkata, we went back to Delhi, and one of our sightseeing trips we went off to was Agra. And while we were in Agra, we had a chance to meet this gentleman who was sitting outside at one of the tourist locations, and he is a polio sufferer. So actually called a crawler. And we started a discussion with this gentleman about being able to go back to Delhi and get the corrective surgery, and Rotary Foundation would pay for it. And he kept telling us, no, 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 I can't go. And we were kind of scratching our heads. We didn't understand what was going on. And he said, if I go and I get corrective surgery, I lose my source of income. I have no way to get any money. And we countered that by saying, oh no, we can take care of that, because Rotary clubs will put you through vocational training and give you skills, and then you can earn money. So through this 20-minute or so conversation, we did convince him that going to Delhi was the right thing, and we made contact with the right Rotary clubs back in Delhi, and he did get off to get polio corrective surgery. So how does the Rotary Foundation help in polio? Well, here's the way it works. For every dollar that we put in, and our goal is to raise 50 million through all of Rotary, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation will match that 50 million with 100 million, which means that we get 150 million to take care of vaccinating children across the world. And nowadays, it's really in two countries that we're focused on, which is Pakistan and Afghanistan. We still have immunization days taking place in other parts, but really the two countries that are still considered endemic are Pakistan and Afghanistan. So every dollar that you donate to the Rotary Foundation for polio will get matched with $2 from the Gates Foundation, giving us $3 to fight this battle. Absolutely unbelievable. Now, usually when I do this presentation, I stop my discussion at this point and I let the sightseeing pictures run through, but I'm just going to run through them really quickly with you, and then you can have an opportunity to ask me questions. So we had a chance to go to Mother Teresa's house and see her tomb, and a little bit about that. Colleen had an opportunity to learn how to wear and dress herself in a sari. We did visit the Taj Mahal, which was a phenomenal sight. That is not a imposed picture. That literally is the Taj Mahal in the background. We had the opportunity to go to the Red Fort, which was an amazing experience. Typical little taxi cab or tuk-tuk that takes you around from place to place throughout India. This is a manual tuk-tuk, not motorized, that you can ride on if you want. The Lotus Temple, which is very near Gandhi's tomb. The Victory Palace, which is a big deal there in India. A banner exchange of our club banner with Dr. Nishal, who I introduced earlier in this presentation. We had a chance to go to the Sikh temple, and while we were at the Sikh temple, we had an opportunity to participate in the feeding of 10,000 people. Take a look at the size of that bowl and imagine cooking food for 10,000 people in that massive sized container. Pretty incredible. And again, this is our crew. You could not wear socks or shoes in. You had to cover your head. And that was us doing all of that. We had a chance to see the India Gate and Gandhi's tomb. And this is traditional wiring in India. So imagine all those telephone wires and internet wiring all going into that cluster. And, you know, if something breaks, imagine trying to be the technician to figure all that out. Just pretty incredible. And this was a typical street view in Old Delhi downtown. This was a big deal for Colleen and me. We are natives of the Baltimore area on the Chesapeake Bay, so we were excited to see a sticker with the Maryland crab on it. So we had to take a picture and put it in here. And towards the end of our trip, Colleen and I had the chance to go off to the Ambra Palace in Jaipur. Had a phenomenal trip, rode the elephants up to the actual facility. A little bit later, we went off on some camel rides in another location. There she is holding a cobra. You couldn't get me that close to the cobra. She was much braver than I was. And that was one of the most beautiful sunsets that we saw on the trip. So, ladies and gentlemen, you have just seen 94 slides in a very short period of time, and I really do appreciate the opportunity to share with you this experience. And I want to just mention one more thing. This trip changed Colleen's and my life. And what I mean by that is Colleen and I got into a discussion on our flight home from Delhi, and that flight left Delhi at 3 o'clock in the morning. And we basically looked at each other and said, you know, what are we doing? We're working for other companies. We are amassing fortunes for those other organizations. And through all of that, all we are doing is amassing stuff that really doesn't mean anything. And we made a decision to change the trajectory of our lives and really start living our values. And I got much more committed to Rotary. I'd already served as district governor. Colleen got much more committed to the service industry as a whole and started donating a lot of her time for the attorney work that she does. And we've just made a decision that, you know, we need to not take, we need to give more. And that has been a transformational experience for both of us. And I just wanted to share that with you all. So I will stop speaking at this point, entertain any questions that anybody may have, and turn it back over to Amanda after that.
Thank you, Scott. Chris, sorry, I was looking at Scott when I said it. So open to any questions from anybody else?
This is Tom. I'd like to give my highest congratulations and compliment Chris and Colleen for what they've done. I've taken a trip and done the Mexam project in Mexico City, and it didn't even come close to your India trip. And I'm a strong supporter of Paul Harris Fellows. And again, just want to say thanks, Chris.
Thank you, Tom.
Chris, how long were you over there? Well, how long was the trip?
So it went from, let me get back to my slides because I can never remember the dates. We started on March 8th and ended on March 25th. So we were there 17 days. And it was not a very expensive, you know, relatively speaking, it was not a very expensive trip. You know, we stayed with Rotarians where we could, and where we didn't stay with Rotarians, we stayed in very, very nice hotels. And I think for both of us, now this is 2014, but I think for both of us, it was about $2,800. And then we had the transportation of getting from the US to there and back to the US. So probably all in total for the two of us, we were looking at about $4,000. But for the experience that we received, absolutely well worth the investment.
Priceless.
If anybody's
Chris,
interested in,
I would agree
if
with that.
anybody's interested in doing a trip, I'm in the final phases now of putting it together, but we're going back into Guatemala with another I mission, 13th of August. Okay. And actually a couple people here on this, Zoom are planning to go with me. So if you're
Awesome.
interested, let me know. And I'm doing another one of the Rotary ones, another Rotary I mission in Kenya in the middle of July. So there's opportunities.
August, what was it, August, Jerry?
August 13th through, I don't remember. Amanda, what did I send you? 13th through 21st or something like that? Just in time to get back and ride in Jim's ride.
There you go.
When was the July one, Jerry?
It's like middle of July. I don't have that in front of me anymore.
Okay. Hey, Chris, I had a question about that man who had suffered through polio. Was that at the mosque in Old Delhi?
I was actually at the Red Fort.
Okay. Because the first time I went, I ran into a guy in similar situation at the mosque, and he wasn't there the last two times I went, so I don't know what happened to him.
Well, I have to give my blessings off to Colleen Bonadonna because she literally sat down through a translator and had a very lengthy conversation with that gentleman about how to transform his life from being a crawler to being, able to be recovered from polio and then being a productive member of society through the vocational training that he would receive from the Rotary Club's vocational skills there in Delhi. So, Colleen is incredibly passionate. Colleen Bonadonna is incredibly passionate about the work that goes on in this part of the world, and all of this corrective polio work that happens. It's, I don't know how else to say it. I mean, it's just, you go on one of these trips. Jerry, you probably feel the same way about your
Oh, yeah.
missions. You go on these trips and you realize, even on our worst days here in the U.S., it's nothing compared to what these people are experiencing on a day-to-day basis. And we have so much to offer and so much to give and so much to be thankful for. And it really does put it into perspective.
It is amazingly easy to cry when you have a simple success with one of those things.
Yeah.
It's so, and you're just crying with the people. I mean, it's a huge happiness cry thing.
Mm-hmm.
Now, just imagine living through that, living through a lot of those things. I mean, I can tell you by personal experience that the way I grew up before I moved to the U.S. So this is not too far away from what we think. If you just look around in places, sometimes they are in our very own backyard. So I'm telling you, these experiences, I encourage anybody that I can take a trip like Chris. And Chris, I really appreciate what you have done. And so that's one of the reasons that I became a Rotarian, because I wanted to be part of giving back, a part of the change and part of what I had received, 40 years ago, whatever time. So,
all the problems that I shouldn't say all, but many of the problems that we face here in the U.S. are what I call first world problems. If you go to Starbucks and you don't get the coffee that you order because they exchange it for somebody else, that's a first world problem. Or if your internet goes out for the day, that's a first world problem. Or if you go to your car and it has a flat tire, that's a first world problem. These folks in this part of the world where open defecation is just a typical day in the life, there are real issues there. And I think, we have an opportunity as Rotarians to continue to work towards helping to solve these issues. I would encourage everyone on this call tonight, if you're not a Paul Harris Fellow currently, do what you can to become one.
and you can be more than one time, if you already
Oh,
won.
absolutely.
Yeah, you can do plus. And we can do it easy.
And when you get to major donor, there are levels of major donor, and then you get to Arch Clump Society, and it goes from there. So
You gotta win the lotto first.
Yes, exactly.
If you're at the March Clump Arena, Chris, you're doing way better than I am.
I'm a major donor level 2 right now.
Oh, good for you. I'm almost there.
Awesome.
Working towards level 3.
Whoa.
I think it would be good for some people in the United States to see this real problems, what people have, to learn that their own, things, what's going on, not that important is.
In the
But
grand
not only in the US, in Europe as well, sometimes,
in the grand scheme of life, that our problems are not real problems. They're
Exactly.
Yeah.
Homemade.
speed bumps and
Homemade most of the time.
yes.
Yes, I know.
I think we here in the US make our own problems by accumulating stuff.
90%, I think. This is my philosophy, really, because when you think about it, what real problems you have, you cannot change, have most of the time, the reason is health issues, and that you can clear sometimes when you change your lifestyle, when you look more what you eat and what you're doing. But this is when you have cancer or whatever, for sure, you cannot do anything. But this is the only real problem what we have in our life. This is what I really, truly believe. And by the way, I'm a Paul Harris Fellow. Thank you.
Awesome.
I just made it on the wall, so.
Chris, thank you for
It'd
sharing
be
that
fun for
story.
us. Oh,
Like
my
you're
pleasure.
explaining. Yeah, the travel, actually going there and seeing it, I think is what makes all the difference, as you've described with your motivation to go there.
For sure.
This is Tom again. I would also suggest that Rotary International has probably done, if not as much, more than any other organization to promote world peace.
I think that goes hand in hand with seeing how other people live, right? And to be able to have some kind of a connection, a human connection with people. It's a lot easier to find peace with a certain person or a population of people when you can actually have a human connection.
Amanda, may I share my screen one more time?
Of course.
Let me see here. Get back to it. There it is. In the very first slide that I put up, which had these symbols here at the bottom, these are the 6 areas of focus, or the 6 causes of the Rotary Foundation. And there's a 7th one on its way, which will be introduced for live participation on July 1, which is sustainability. But peace is our overarching focus as an organization, world peace. And then we have disease prevention, we have clean water and sanitation, maternal and child health, literacy, and economic development. So as Rotary clubs focus on the grand scale of things in terms of Rotary Foundation grants that we can get, global grants that we can get, these are the 6 primary areas that those grants have to fall into. And I think it's important that we all understand that as Rotarians, that we are not just kind of willy-nilly raising money for this, that, and the other thing, but we have very strategic focus areas for which we're raising money and doing projects.
I think it's part of the benefit of doing the travel to actually see it for yourself and where it's going.
Mm-hmm.
Right out of college, I spent a little time in Tanzania. Yeah. It's an organization called Global Volunteers.
Hey,
go ahead, Chris.
Forgive me, everybody, just for a little bit of levity. There you go. World peace.
Oh yeah.
Sorry about that.
Is that one of the eye tests you use in Guatemala?
There you go. Yeah, we'll say it that.
But what I was going to say, Scott, is if anybody has the opportunity to go on this trip that Jerry's talking about, it's a great opportunity to learn more about the work that Rotarians and the Rotary Foundation does to make our world a better place.
I'm really interested in that, and actually looking forward to being able to travel anywhere.
For me,
any of these trips, guys, for this next year, for most of these countries you're going to go into, you're going to have proof of the vaccine and a proof of a negative test within 3 days of travel. For most of the countries, that's what you're going to deal with in the next year.
Yep.
What are the costs for this trip, Jerry, to Guatemala?
I don't have it detailed out yet, but it's approximately $1,200 for the land package part of it, and then it's $600 to $800 for the round trip airfare.
Mm-hmm.
So it's on the order of $2,000.
Mm-hmm.
Then we try to raise some money. I mean, that's out of your pocket. And then we try to raise some money for, supporting the actual mission work.
It'd be a good chance for us to give a high five to Scott Nelson, who just donated 235 pairs of glasses. We worked with worked with an optometrist in Alameda, California, who donated 235 pairs of glasses that he washed up and sent off to Jerry so that Jerry and his team there can figure out what the prescriptions are, and we can take them with us to Guatemala.
Which means I only have like 600 or 700 to process now.
Those were cool pictures that you posted, Scott, on the Facebook page.
It was fun. It was fun to think about the lives that these glasses have come from and the lives they're going to.
Yep.
Yeah, my first Rotary moment, I think I've shared with some of you before in terms of on these missions, is putting on a pair of glasses to somebody, and I was totally unprepared. She had not seen anything for at least 10 years that she could see clearly or anything like that. And I'll remember forever. She looked left, she looked right at me, and she grabbed me and gave me this huge kiss. And I didn't realize that I was really the first thing, that poor thing, that she saw clearly in her life for in well over 10 years. And so, but it's just an amazing experience when stuff like that happens.
Definitely looking forward to it. Said it before. I'm so grateful that I ended up in the job that I was in when I was in Iraq, to be able to do work like that, to be able to do the immunization of the kids and the women's clinics, and that kind of work is just so incredibly fulfilling. And again, I think back to the point about world peace and making sure we have a good foundation for empathy and understanding what other people go through. That's like how I've raised my kids, right? We've had many discussions. Sit down and let's talk about how the real world is, kind of discussions. So, Chris, I have a question for you. Did you, and I think I've asked this before with people who've gone to India, how much does the caste system play into the prevalence of polio? I'm assuming that it's fairly prevalent within the lower castes. Is that the case?
That's a tough question because, publicly the Indian culture has abandoned the caste system, but I think in real life it still exists to a degree. And if you're born, my opinion, if you're born into one of the lower castes, you're going to be hard pressed to get out of that. Let me give you an example. And I didn't have this in the slide presentation, but there was a gentleman that was our tour guide there. His name is Ajay, and Ajay has the heart of a Rotarian. He had been trying forever to join Rotary and could not get a Rotary club in India to acknowledge him, talk to him, even though he had all these relationships with Rotarians from India because of all the clubs and the projects that we were visiting. But nobody would even entertain the conversation with Ajay about being a Rotarian. And I think it's two reasons. Number one, in India, it's very common that you go through what I call the farm team system, which means that you were an interactor and then you became a Rotaractor, and then you go from Rotaract directly into Rotary, is number one. And number two, if you didn't have the right connections with the right people and the right background, you didn't get the opportunity. Well, I was so impressed with Ajay that when I got back to the US, at that time, the E Club of the Carolinas was forming. And I was able to connect Ajay with the E-Club of the Carolinas, and he is now a Rotarian, but a Rotarian of a U.S. club, and he participates in their meetings and participates virtually in their service projects. So I do think, a long-winded answer to your very short question, Amanda, is I do think it plays a part.
That's
Yeah.
a dynamite story. What a great opportunity for both the club and for him.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, he brings experiences to the club that the club would otherwise not have.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Chris, again, for stepping in and for presenting to us tonight. Obviously, I mean, I'm sure that, truth be told, we could talk for hours and hours about your experience. I love hearing the stories. Jerry's applauding. I thought you were raising your hand. Jerry's applauding you.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to present. It really was my pleasure.
Much, much appreciated. Anybody else have anything to share tonight?
Yeah, go ahead.
Who was it? Emilio and somebody else. Who was it?
Tom is also here. I just wanted to mention also that I think Rotary International, correct me if I'm wrong, but has done another major great service by establishing the emergency fund category where, you know, if you have a hurricane or a typhoon or a major flood in these countries, that Rotary can step in and provide some emergency funding to help the people.
Yeah, for sure. Emilio, did you have something?
I wanted to mention that Guatemala did get hit twice last year. Iota hit on the other, I can't remember the other one before Iota that I hit. So there was a need there, and if you go on the iMission with Jerry's group, you'll see some of that going on. So that's another thing that you may want to keep in mind, that what we're doing is going to be challenging for you.
For sure. I mean, it's emotionally challenging anytime you do one of those, anything like this, regardless of where you're doing it. I'll tell you, I've had the same experience here in Leesburg, Virginia. Just depends on, you know, where you're doing and what you're up to. So I'm going to call somebody out who is not Richard Acton. This is Richard's evil twin, Quinn? Or are you Richard? I'm trying my best to take attendance. Quinn. All right, thanks. I was like, I think that's Quinn. So thanks for joining us.
Hey, Quinn. Good to see you.
I had to call you out because don't apologize. Congrats on working on your new house. Is it an igloo? did you build an igloo yet? No, you're down here with us. He must not have. We can all talk about it because he can't talk back. So yeah, he's sending messages to us. So good to see you. Thanks for joining us. I don't think we have anybody else. I'm not going to call anybody else out tonight. But all right. Well, we are coming up on 7:55. So Rory, did you have something to add?
No, I was just going to say unmute him.
Can I unmute him? I can ask him to unmute. I think he's. Can't ask him to unmute. Quinn, you're broken.
Uh-oh.
I'm unmuted.
There you go. He's real. You can't just come in and be all quiet and wear your hat over your eyes and pretend like you're not here. I'm gonna call you out. That's just how it's gonna work. So.
Oh, fun then.
Tell us about your new house. You got 2 minutes.
So I bought my house in March of last year, and it's from 1860s-ish.
Wow.
So I've been renovating it for almost a year.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
What major projects are you tackling?
Well, I did all upstairs, so 3 bedrooms, another bathroom, fixed the main floor, and now working on the back room.
Nice.
Where
Yeah.
where is it located?
It's in a little town near my old house where I lived with my parents in Ontario.
I grew up in Minnesota. We used to get up there once in a while. Beautiful part of the world.
Outside Ontario, I'm familiar with all of it.
It's
I
near.
lived there for 3 months unwillingly. Mississauga, 2401 Mississauga. That's where I was my entire 3 months.
I'm like, what is it? Around 4 hours north from Mississauga.
Wingham.
There's some fun riding up there near Quinn.
Yep.
We can go there up and around and north around that, what is it, up around Georgian Bay, catch Chi-Chi-Men across the lake and go back around down there. That's pretty good fun.
Yep. Little wet though, if you remember that.
Actually, I was on the pre-ride. We were dry. You were on the pre-ride too, were you?
Nope.
I don't remember.
I was working.
That's so far from me. Pretty far.
Closer than Germany, you would say.
My trip to Germany was good. We had snow actually, and I had a good car, and I was driving in the Bavaria area, you know. And it's always when I'm there, and I love the churches over there. They have special towers, and the form looks like an onion, you know, from the top of the towers. And it's always so peaceful, you know. And the weather was not bad. But one day it was snow. Normally I wanted to go back to the Frankfurt area at this day, but then I decided, no, I don't want in the cars for maybe 5 or 6 hours. So I did it next day, and it was only gorgeous, you know. So yeah, I really appreciate it. A little bit, you know, difficult because of the COVID situation, and everybody is really very, you know, there's only 2 kinds of people: the people that are really panicking, and the other people, they say, you know, I get it, or I get it not, you know, something like that. So, and it's a lot about testing. So if you are, it's not the question, do you have corona or not? It's about testing. So get you tested or not. And this is something what I think, you know, I can get tested today and get it tomorrow. So what it says, you know, at the end. So, but it's right now they have a lockdown. I was pretty good in the time to go out, and then 2 days later they had the lockdown. So for me, but there was no restaurant open, nothing. So you can pick up, but you cannot eat somewhere. So they have a lot of restrictions right now.
Yeah, glad you were able to go still.
I was happy, yeah, to see my family, my mom, you know, especially my mom. She's 85, and but she's good. When I came in and she said, my brother said, oh, maybe, you know, and my mother said, no, I'm immune. I don't get it. So she was really cool with that. Life is too short, I think.
All right, all. Fantastic meeting. Thanks again to Chris Jones and for everybody showing up tonight. I do appreciate it. We had a fantastic turnout.
Okay.
I did get attendance, so I'll give that.
Here is my 4-way test. Let's see if I can see.
Are you, there you go. Can we,
Oh, there you go.
you're holding it up. Are you volunteering to read it from behind as well, Emilio?
Let me see if I can read it. Oh, yeah, I think I can. Okay. So whenever you're ready.
Whenever you're ready, sir.
Okay. For the things we do and say, is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it bring better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? Number 5.
Fun.
Be fun.
Is it fun?
Is it fun? Always fun.
Thank you, Emilio.
If it's not fun, refer to rule number 1. All right, guys. Thanks again. Have a great week. We've got a board meeting immediately following this for any other members that are.
Except
Do we need to re-log in, or we just stay online?
We can just stay online. I'm just going to shut the recording off.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.